grappled with questions related to post-revolution reconstruction, transitional justice, global South migration, also known as human trafficking, and environmental protection outside the context of the United States. These students should now better understand grassroots peace building, pursuit of justice, and agency from different vantage points. Their coursework included a combination of site visits, sessions with peace building practitioners, readings, and discussions. But enough of me sharing about what they did. Let's hear from the travelers. Nepal group, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Mike, and thank you for having this spotlight on our trip, but I know you don't want to hear from us, so I'm going to hand it off to the students and let them introduce themselves.
Okay, my name is Andrew Morrison. I am a junior here at Manchester. I'm studying elementary education, Spanish, and I'm minoring in peace studies.
My name is Charlie. I'm a sophomore, and I'm studying Spanish and peace studies.
Hi, I'm Isabella. I am studying psychology and religious culture with a minor in peace studies.
Hi, I'm Mackenzie. I'm a sophomore. I'm a nursing major, and I'm also minoring in peace studies.
Hello, my name is Coco Rosales. I'm also a sophomore here at Manchester, and I'm studying psychology and peace studies right now.
I guess I should introduce myself too, right?
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anuj Guru. I am the Gladys Muir Assistant Professor of Peace Studies here in the Peace Studies Department of Manchester University. And I had the distinct pleasure of traveling with all of these students and Colleen during the Jan term trip. And, well, I shouldn't say more. I'll let the students talk more later. And I'll chime in as necessary, like professors do, you know.
Yes, I guess I also should add, I'm Colleen Kaler, the current Peace Studies coordinator. Also got the privilege of traveling with the students on this trip.
And I'm Katie Gray Brown. Hi, people. I see a lot of friends. And I was also part of this group. And the course was Peacemaking in Practice Abroad.
Okay, well, we can go ahead and talk about why did we go to Nepal?
Yeah, so like Katie just said, the course was called Peacemaking and Practice Abroad. So, you know, going somewhere that obviously has a lot of things to study in different areas of peace building was kind of the goal of the trip. But I think we chose Nepal because Anuj, our professor, is Nepal is where originally he's from. And so also we had the great pleasure of traveling with his sister and being able to meet his family and kind of see where he's from. So that was like more of a special, unique aspect to it. We had that personal connection with Anuj and Nepal, but also, you know, the whole point of the course was to experience the new and traditional Nepal. So this was in light of the recent revolution that they just had, the Gen Z revolution, which Charlie will touch on here in a few minutes. But just understanding all of the political aspects of the build up to the revolution and kind of what things look like for them now. And then also being able to examine and then also like describe and analyze at the end of each day in discussion different like historical and religious and cultural aspects of Nepal. You know, we had a lot of site visits where we went to like temples and stupas and we're learning more about the religious aspects and religious history there in Nepal. But also we went and had meetings with different organizations that were doing peace building, you know, with like women's rights, human rights, environmental and climate change, just a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah, it's basically the gist of it.
And can I add to that, as Coco mentioned, we'll be talking a lot about the Gen Z movement and the great political change that happened starting in September of last year. But Anuj and I decided to do this trip to Nepal in November of 2024, right? I think there's a lot of planning that goes ahead of time. So we had been planning this trip even before the election in the US. which brought changes in foreign aid policy that affected sort of U.S. relations in Nepal and peace building work in Nepal. And then, a full 10 months before there was this real political revolution in Nepal, which makes me just think, you have to watch where peace studies is going to go, because evidently we were able to really tap into where some big changes might happen.
Okay, so Charlie, do you want to elaborate a little bit on the Gen Z protests?
Yeah. So as soon as we got to Nepal, it was evident that the Gen Z movement was extremely impactful on their society. As soon as we got off the plane in Kathmandu, and we took our bus to the hotel room, we were actually shown by some of the people that met us there different buildings and where they were burned and where they were vandalized. So, like, as was mentioned earlier, um, we did not know that this would occur when the trip was first planned. So this was kind of something we were anticipating in the 3 or 4 months leading up to the trip, and something that we had learned. And then when we had met with the various nonprofits and organizations that we met with throughout the length of the trip, each of them kind of took a spin and talked to us about how the Gen Z movement would impact them. Like, for example, on one of the first days we were there, we met with the women's group, and then there was actually a young woman who had actually been at the protest on September 8th, prior to some of the violence happening there. She was talking to us about the implications for that and how long it lasted and the specific numbers of the violence that occurred. And then we also were able to learn how they're expecting to have an election in March. And that was something that people are hoping that occurs. And then also when we met with different university students, they kind of took their academic take on how the Gen Z movement and the hopeful upcoming election is going to impact them. So it kind of just shows how this movement impacts the society as a whole. And one thing I noticed with Nepal specifically is that the country just seems like more consolidated. So like this thing that's happening in Kathmandu, which is their major city, it seems to impact the entire country in a way that is quite different than different events impact different cities in the United States. So that was one thing that I found very interesting. But yeah, it was evident that the Gen Z revolution was extremely impactful and educational throughout the length of our trip, and everybody we met with and everything we did.
Yeah, there was definitely it was a topic of conversation everywhere we went, and perspectives varied quite a bit. I think a lot of the younger people we were working with were feeling optimistic and feeling like their voice was finally heard. And some older people thought that might have been a little bit naive. And there was one group that we talked to that said they were taking bets in the office about whether or not the election would happen in March. Um, so it was definitely interesting to see those perspectives. And Nepal has an extremely complicated political system. And it was further complicated even while we were in the country. Right before we left, the mayor of Kathmandu resigned 3 years into his 5-year term so that he could run for a parliamentary seat in these elections in March. So it was really interesting to see how people are feeling about it, and where it might be going. But one thing that we did hear from several elders was that lots of people who have kids that have moved outside of Nepal and haven't really expressed any interest in the politics in country so far are now going to come back home to vote because they're feeling like it might be worth it and they're interested in it for the first time, which is really fascinating. Um, each of the students can now talk about something that they found particularly meaningful if nobody has any questions about the Gen Z
Colleen, are you showing the slideshow presentation at all, or?
I can if we want it up now.
Did you guys want it? I did.
I don't need it.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Oh.
I thought we were all going to.
I guess the slides aren't really good.
Oh.
Yeah, they're kind of like,
Oh, there we go.
yeah, we can just talk about some of the pictures. Okay, so I'm gonna talk first about something. There's a lot of things that stood out to me on this trip, and obviously we have such limited time to talk about everything. Can you go back to the first slide, actually? I was gonna point out the picture. So the picture in the bottom right corner, that's actually me. That was like the highest point we got to closest to the mountains, like the best view and stuff that we kind of got of it. So that day is actually the day that we went trekking, which is, what they refer to as hiking over there and stuff. Honestly, trekking is a much cooler sounding word than hiking. But yeah, we went trekking one day. And we went up to this village called Luang Village. And it's also where some of Anuja's ancestors were. His house, the house that his father still takes care of from his grandparents, is there. So we got to see that. But we were welcomed into this village by these people like dancing and playing music and put on these like flower necklaces on us. I'm actually wearing like a scarf right now that Anuja's dad gave each one of us one when we got to the airport, and there's like two other like pieces of fabric that I got as as some sort of like welcoming or blessing from different groups we stayed with as well. And then I'm pretty sure we got like 2 or 3 flower necklaces over the whole time that we were there, just because it truly is like a blessing in their culture and stuff, but also just how they welcome people. So yeah, when we got there, we had some tea, had some light snacks, got to do a little bit of dancing, and meet this new group of people, and then we were off to trekking. And I think it was it like 75 stories? I don't know. Someone was looking at like their Apple Watch or something, and I think it was like 3-ish miles or something. We hiked all the way up to where that picture was taken. There was like puppies we got to play with. We got to see all these tea plants and stuff where they actually like make the tea and sell it and stuff. We passed different homestays, which Bella will touch on later, like what a homestay is. And we just got to hang out up there and stuff. So the trekking was one of the most intense parts of the trip because, obviously it was a lot of energy and it got pretty warm and stuff the higher that we were getting. And it was really steep steps and stuff at sometimes. But once we got to the top and the views and the people and just being there together, it just made everything worth it. Like I forgot that I was even tired and stuff from trekking before. So that was probably one of my favorite days just because it was, I've been hiking before and stuff, but this was just like a new way of doing it with different people and a different culture. And it was just very nice. So yeah, we also had a meal when we came back, and that was probably my favorite meal. We had something called sel roti, and it was for this holiday that they were celebrating. And it's kind of like this fried dough ring that we had. And so I'm usually a picky eater, but I found myself actually really enjoying a lot of the Nepali traditional foods.
Yeah, I wanted to add to the trekking part. So I think one of the most beautiful experience for me, in addition to the trekking over the hills, not mountains, was that I think we accomplished it together as a group, as a community, right? So some people trekked really quickly, some people trekked slowly, but I think we just were watching out for each other, and we trekked together well. And I should mention Coco was really instrumental in singing, dancing, and basically cheering everybody on as we trekked up the hill, right? So I think for me it was like almost a spiritual experience, just doing this together as a common experience as Peace Studies community.
Should we talk about the pictures right there? Other ones?
Yeah, I think some of the picture in the middle of Kenzie is a group of us playing hacky sack also when we were trekking and stuff. So after we got to kind of rest for a second and stuff, then we were kind of up and at 'em again, doing fun stuff. And the other pictures, everyone else can kind of share something from that, what the picture is, or
Yeah.
whatever you want.
Okay, so my specific thing that I wanted to talk about from this trip was about the hospitality specifically. The picture in the top left is a picture of me once we got to the homestay. The family that was actually in charge of the homestay, the guy, he sent his son to go ride his motorbike with me while I was running. And then once I finished, he let me ride it back. And that was just one of the most impactful experiences for me. Obviously, this trip was filled with a ton of planned educational experiences, but I find that some of the most learning that I did throughout this trip were on things that were not originally planned, like this. And with that specifically, he was probably younger than me, but he taught me so much. He taught me about the different animals throughout there. He was able to scare the stray dogs away when they were running in my path. And my specific thing that I wanted to talk about from the trip was food, but the food that just doesn't even go through the baseline of how hospitable this place was. And it seemed like every single place we went, the food that we were getting was like the most luxurious food made for all the holidays and stuff. So they really see the tourists as gods there. And that was really important to me because I find food is a very good cultural thing to bring people together. And so being able to have that experience and trying all the new food and the stuff that is grown in the regions and then prepared by the people who are trying to appeal to you, and then they're making the best food possible just for you, and you just met them. That is just like one of the most important experiences I had. So all the hospitality that was had from all the different places we stayed, to all the different food we had, to all the experiences we indulged in, to all the ceremonies they put us through when we arrived in different places. It was all just so meaningful, and it helped me learn a lot about myself and about the culture from around the world.
For context, Charlie is a cross-country runner and track runner, so he's in season, so he had to take a run.
Yes.
I think, sorry, I think it's important that we have Bella talk about what she's gonna talk about, which is homestays.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's
We
probably
keep
many
bringing it
people who, don't know what a homestay is, or especially what it was like for the one that we stayed at, so.
Yeah. So homestays, pulling up the. So this specific homestay that we stayed in was in Chitwan. And what is a homestay? It's actually a form of ecotourism. And so you get to stay with a local family, in our instance, an indigenous family. And you get to, it's really community based. And you get to be with more of a local, you get to have more of a local experience in that. And so they're giving you your food, you get private rooms, so unlike a hostel or something, you get your own private room. Kinsey and I were actually sharing. But they're constantly cooking dinner. You can get tour guides through this. You can participate in different cultural exchanges. Like, for example, we got to go to their community center that they had, and they performed some different cultural dances for us in a big room, which was really cool. And just while we were there, one of the tours that we did take is we went on a safari. And so we got to go through the jungle. We got to see different animals. We saw lots of rhinos was a big thing. Yes, the vultures. We got to go to a vulture feeding really early in the morning. So it was freezing at this point. Because if you know anything about Chitwan, especially at night, because it's rural for the most part, there wasn't a ton of heating, and then you get out into the open and then it's freezing in the morning. So we all go out, we get to see this vulture feeding, and they took, was it buff? It was a buffalo, and they drug it out of this cage, and all these vultures were just waiting, and they swarm in, they're eating, and the people who took charge of this ended up, the group, when did it start? doesn't matter. But the guy basically was like recognizing that the vulture population was dropping and decided he wanted to do something about it. And so like they had people come and watch, and you get to watch all the vultures being fed. It was kind of like a cartoon, because by the time we were leaving, you could see the bones, like they devoured all that meat so quickly. And during the safari tour, my specific bus, it was open top bus, and so there's like nothing to protect you, so you get to like look around and stuff. And we actually had, yeah, the open top there. And so we actually had the guy who does some of the, oh, what was it? Do you remember the conservation work and just like making sure like poaching wasn't really happening there? And he was able to like point out different things to us and tell us what different animals were there. There's also some elephants. So these were domesticated elephants, but it's still really cool to see these Asian elephants up close. We got to see a younger, was it a younger bull? You guys remember?
Mhm.
Yeah. And that was really cool. And so with the homestays, you got to have a more in-depth, just kind of experience with the culture in general, which is really cool, because before we were staying more at hotels and different stuff, and like you get to participate in the culture and be in all these places. But for me, I was hoping, I don't know, my idea of an adventure. And so in some ways it's kind of roughing it, but their hospitality, kind of like how Charlie was talking about, like they're constantly waiting on you, like and making sure that you have all the amenities that you need and that you're comfortable while still having this experience that is more in tune and experiencing maybe what locals like in Chitwan would be able or would be living. So yeah, it was really cool and something I never would have looked at. I honestly had never heard of before. And so to be able to participate in this was really cool.
What was this picture from?
Mhm.
Yeah, this picture is from, we went on a safari while we were staying at the homestay. So that's where we got to see a lot of the really cool, like elephants and rhinos, and very close up to rhinos, actually. We just got to spend an afternoon out and absorb all of the nature and the beauty. And I will say, during the whole time we were on this trip, but especially at the homestay, we really got to take in a lot of the natural beauty of the country. And the cities definitely were geared a lot more towards tourists and kind of a bigger city feel. But here at the homestay, like Bella said, it was, I mean, it was open, like open fields, and all these animals would just come up to us, and like they told us we couldn't go out past dark because the animals are out and about roaming at night. So they wanted us to be safe and stay in the homestay. It was really incredible.
Yeah, because the place we're at in Chitwan is considered a buffer zone, where the national park is at. And so like part of the reason why Charlie had to have the person right next to him is not just because of the stray dogs, but the chances that there could be a rhino just walking on the dirt road that was there. It was really cool. And it's like a 2-day walk from India. So between the place we were at in Chitwan and the jungle, it was like that was the only barrier.
Well, and this is a good picture. Would you all introduce Avani and Sony to the group?
Yeah, so all the way to the right in like the bluish green jacket is her actual name is Kanchan. It's Anuja's older sister, but she goes by her nickname Sony. And then right behind her in the black jacket is Avani, which is her daughter, Anuja's niece. And they were basically our travel coordinators for the trip. So were the ones who, called the different organizations and had their connections and stuff to organize all the meetings that we had and organize the homestay and the different visits we were going to. And when we had a tour guide named Prem in the beginning of the trip, that's, who obviously found him to be with us for a couple of days to show us around to all the places that we were going. And Avani is around, I think our age, 17, 18, so closer to like the younger people on the trip. And then Sony's background, we even had a day, what was it, lunch? I think it was when we were in Pokhara, the last city that we went to before going back to Kathmandu, the main city. We had lunch and discussion with Sony and just got her whole background of all the different jobs and stuff that she's worked. But I think you can tell, kind of her main focus is, I guess, is like kind of economic agriculture. So now she's trying to work on, what is going to bring more tourists and stuff to Nepal, but looking at it in a more like kind of like ecotourism lens. And I feel like that's kind of part of why we were able to stay at this specific homestay, because they don't usually ever welcome international people, right? This was the first time that they had a group, like us stay with them.
They were extra nervous about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was really cool because Sony, she formerly worked for USAID in Nepal, and so she was so high up that she was one of the last, well, not one of the last, but one of the last to actually get cut. And so getting to hear about her work, and helping industrialize some of the agriculture, in Nepal and just different stuff. And it was really cool that we get to have this talk because that was changing. I mean, when we planned this, like Katie mentioned, like USAID was still there. And so getting to hear about that transition and what she's trying to do now.
And we also spoke to another USAID worker who formerly worked with her. So, and that was good to hear because it was someone who was from Chicago. So it was someone who could have a similar experience to one we might have in the future. So it was nice to hear about someone who had that experience coming from the United States and then living in Nepal and having to go through all the political landscape while being far away. So it was nice to hear from someone like that.
And hearing too, getting to know Avani as a 17-year-old who really could translate what the youth in Nepal are feeling about their political prospects, their social and economic prospects, and having that sort of peer perspective with our students was just deeply, deeply special. And the entire trip, we felt entirely hosted by this family who is connected to us through this special relationship we have with Anuj. And it was a remarkable experience. I think some of you have heard about our trip 2 years ago to Kenya, where Manchester grad Angie Yoder Mina also hosted us. It really felt like there are these Manchester connections and relationships that make these opportunities possible for our students and for our faculty in a very, very special way. So it felt like a very Manchester trip in that respect.
Yeah, and I give total credits to Avani because she just jumped in with a bunch of college kids and was translating for us and talking with us and getting along with us like it was nothing. If I was in her shoes at 17, I don't know if I could have done the same. And it honestly made the experience so much cooler. And I got to like pick her brain a few times about like, hey, what you think? And like when the Gen Z protest was happening, how she was in school and the teachers didn't know about it. And so like just hearing, I guess like getting a personal insight on what it was like being a teenager, like a young person in Nepal, where your generation is quite literally having a revolution, and someone who isn't like directly, like she didn't directly attend those like main protests. And so just hearing how she was a little bit nervous about what was going to happen, but some of it was really inspiring. And yeah, it was really cool to have that one-on-one conversation with someone like that.
We're gonna talk about the women's skills. Okay, so transitioning to Pokhara, we went to a Women's Skills Development Organization, or known as WSDO. And they are a nonprofit organization located in Pokhara, which is about 5 hours from Kathmandu. And since 1975, WSDO has been providing employment opportunities for women who are facing social and economic hardships. The organization offers free training and then employs women in specialized roles during the weaving and sewing process of their productions. And to date, WSDO has trained over 27,000 women. All of their products are hand woven and hand sewn with undeniable quality, and not to mention, they're also super cute. The organization was founded by Ramkali Koka, who started this work at just 19 years old. She recognized the struggles women faced in supporting themselves and the widespread discrimination against women, and she was determined to make a change to that. Her goals were to improve the quality of life for women across Nepal by empowering them with practical skills and the ability to become self-supporting. Beyond employment, WSDO helps women not only get back on their feet, but help them truly excel. They provide education, free annual health checkups, health and hygiene camps, child care services, and much more. So after learning about the organization's mission, we had the opportunity to visit the production site in Pokhara. We saw hundreds of vibrant colors of dyed cotton, which you can see on the slideshow there. And a lot of them are natural dyes, so made with like different fruits or just different leaves and plants and stuff that they have native to Nepal. And we got to observe the weaving and sewing process firsthand and learned how the products are quality checked before shipping. And this ended up being one of my favorite stops on our trip because I used to sew and weave as a kid. So the experience felt especially meaningful to me. And it also felt really good to support an organization that directly addresses issues I deeply care about. And just again, the fact that everything's so adorable was definitely a bonus. And I even brought some of their products to show you guys. So, I mean, I carry it up there. Okay, hello. Okay. I don't know if you can see, I'm wearing their belt, and look, they have a little patch that says hand woven Nepal, so it's super cute. This is Coco's backpack, hand woven, hand sewn, so cute. And then this is my personal bag that I got, and they also have this other patch that says Women's Skills Development Organization, Pokhara, and then again the Made in Nepal patch. And they have the red patch, which I think is it artificial dyes, the like non-traditional dyes, and then they also have a tan color one, which is all their natural dyes. So yeah.
It was really cool because they like literally walked us through the process of like them with the big dye pool, like bags of it, and like talking about how long they leave the fabric in there. And you got to go to the next room and the next room and like seeing how they're like threading and sewing and just all this stuff. And they literally took us through like individual rooms. And it was like a step-by-step process. And so it was cool to like normally you get to hear about these fair trade opportunities and all these cool businesses, but then actually getting to go there and like hear their story and seeing the process, I don't know, I thought it was really cool. I brought a bag too, but I don't have it with me. But yeah, it was a really cool experience to be able to witness that firsthand.
Yeah, and I think it was 80% of their products are shipped out to other countries and even internationally. So they're more of like a world fair trade. And I forgot what I was gonna say. I'm sorry.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah. And a lot of what we were seeing in the trip.
Oh, no, you could go first.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
A lot of what we were seeing in the trip, and this was a good example of it, is like these different groups where they saw a problem and then they just like figured out a way to address it and like just hopped right on it. And it was really inspiring because I think a lot of times we think of these huge issues, and that was something I was really learning. It's like this person who's like, right, women are struggling and how can we give them skills and like give them money and different opportunities. And like at 19, like he said, yeah, she started doing this like my age. And so, yeah, it was incredibly inspiring.
I remember what I was gonna say. So, in America, we use the weaving machines that we use that have like foot pedals, and it'll automatically lift it up for you and have it all wired and all ready for you. And I was surprised to see in Nepal the work on the floor, and she like manually has to pick up which string she wants to go under. And it's a very long weave from the end of the room to where she was sitting all the way on the other side of the wall. So that was really surprising to me. And it was really interesting to watch her be able to literally make a bag right in front of me.
Okay, those are really great. I think we should pivot just a bit and give Andrew a chance to talk about working or visiting an elementary school.
Yes, one of my favorite things that I learned to love about this group of students as we were traveling, as we introduced ourselves to every organization that we met with, and when we met with different people, we always would like say our name and kind of explain where we're from, what Manchester is, like kind of spreading our story to them just as we were learning from them. And as we introduced ourselves, we would sometimes like give our name and our majors, like what we're studying at school. And I loved hearing this at every point and taking in the fact that we all come from different disciplines, right? So we're all taking this peace studies class, but almost everybody on this trip has another discipline besides just peace studies that we take with us. So I'm education, Mackenzie's nursing, Charlie Spanish. I mean, we had a lot of philosophy students with us. But we all carried things. It's not like we were just peace study students. We had these different things that brought us together, and yet we still, we felt like a very well-rounded group, and I appreciated that about us. But also that it showed in the places that we visited. So like what everybody else has been talking about, like the Women's Skills Development Organization and all the different non-government organizations and the not-for-profit groups that we got to talk with. It wasn't just like we were talking to the same people every time. We got a variety of experiences, and I appreciated that, getting to talk to some people more politically active, some people more work focused, some people interested in climate change and environmental work. It was eye-opening for that. And as an education student, like I had on my educator hat a lot of the time as we were going places. And one of my favorite places that we got to visit was towards the end of the end of the trip, when we went back to Kathmandu for our last few days. We got to visit an elementary school, which spoke to me as an elementary education major. But we got to meet with the founders of the school. The school is called EDUC Nepal, like Education Nepal. And it was the purpose of the school was to help support and uplift impoverished children in the community. So they would reach out to communities and families near where the school is, and try to help find a way to get the kids to come to this school for a lot cheaper than they would be paying to go somewhere else, just because school isn't always the most affordable for everybody. And it was inspiring to hear about the work that they were doing at that school, and kind of the years of work that they had put it up to this point. We got to meet with the founders, the people who had founded this organization. I forget how long ago, but they had been going for a while. And the school itself was, I think, preschool through fourth grade, maybe. That was at least first grade through fourth grade.
No,
Up
like
until first grade.
preschool. It's like 2.5-year-olds to about like
It was first grade, but like the students, their ages.
Yeah, I guess they were different ages, and the classes were pretty small size, and they kind of had a mix of students in them. But we got to meet with after we met with the founders of the school and the people who lead it. We got to go into some of the classrooms, and that was the part that I really enjoyed the most about it, because we got to go in, and when I asked some of the teachers as we walked into the classrooms, I said, "Oh, what are you guys learning about today? What topics are we talking about in school?" And they were like, how to greet visitors, and like how to talk to people from different countries, because they haven't had much experience with white people coming into their school. It was like a new experience for them. So how to communicate with us, how to share part of their culture, and like how to be friendly, how do we communicate nicely. And so I just loved being able to go in there, and I would go down and kind of squat down to where the kids level was at, and they would show me their workbooks, and they all had these big workbooks that they were working through. I think I was with some of the 7-year-olds or 8-year-olds, and they were so excited. They didn't know very much English, but I mean, as each grade progressed, they were learning more and more English. So it was fun to see the progression and how much they actually have learned. But when I was talking to like the 7-year-olds, they were showing me their workbook and they were so excited to show me fire truck, airplane, and they would point at all the pictures and like tell me the words that they were learning. And I was like, yes, very good job. It was awesome to see that, and just how excited they were to be able to meet with new people. And I know after we got to meet with them and we were kind of closing out before we left, the founders that we were meeting with told us, like, anytime you come back, we would love to have you guys come back and volunteer here. And Bonnie actually volunteered previously there. And I know if I ever go back to Nepal, I would love to volunteer there. It was such an awesome place and the work that they were doing was fantastic. But yeah, I mean, beyond just the school, it was so amazing to be able to talk to all these different groups and hear not just about one specific area of study, but I mean, the work that they're doing and how they can better the people. It really felt like the people that we met with were all working towards the goal of uplifting one another and helping the country be a better place by supporting one another. And it was enlightening and uplifting to hear the work that they were doing.
Really quickly, I'd like to say a little bit about cooperatives and then we can do questions because I know we don't have a ton of time left. But a lot of different places that we went, we saw neighborhoods and communities that banded together and took problem solving into their own hands. So for example, in Chitwan, right before we left, we met with a savings and credit cooperative. So instead of relying on a national bank that would have high interest rates, they have micro loans and loan and save within the community. And they say, if you can just put away 50 rupees in a month, which is a very small amount, but if you can start with that, then they can help raise families in their communities out of poverty because they have, in some cases, very little. And it was the same thing with Women for Human Rights. They had a healthcare women could go there for counseling and for healthcare and to learn about savings and credit and to get help with just saving a few things and banding together with a smaller group and a smaller community instead of relying on these national companies. And that was really cool. But I know you all probably have questions, so we should probably get to those.
Colleen, if you want to stop sharing your screen, and that way, then if anyone, you can feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question, or you can raise your hand. There's a feature to do that, or you can put your question in the chat, and I can read that out loud for folks. Feel free.
Hi, this is Bev, and Manchester 73. But first of all, I wish I'd known you all were coming because I would have made sure I helped fund this program a little bit more because Nepal is pretty dear to my heart. I've been there 3 times, and I went for the mountains, and I went back the second and third time because of the people and the culture. So it's just really, really great that you could experience. You got a true experience, I think. I'm curious. I've seen it go from the king to the Maoist and now the Gen Z. What are they well, I shouldn't say what are they most upset about. What are they hopeful? What is the change they want to see? Or did they express that at all? And the other question sort of is, how influential is China there right now? Because I know for a while it was overpowering. So I'd say, where did this road get built? And they said China. So I guess that's a 2-part question. I guess the first is, what did the students say anything about what they're most hopeful, the change that they're really looking for at this point?
I think so. Having conversations with especially the people our age and stuff and what they thought about it, you know, it definitely started from when there started being a lot of like social media bans and stuff. And, you know, that our generation is upset, not because, you know, we're addicted to our phones or something, but that's because that's how a lot of people live nowadays, you know, by using social media and the internet, and that's how they're making a living and stuff. So that was just, you know, taking something away from them that was helping them live or something. So that obviously is what caused a lot of outrage. It's like, we this is what we need, like this is our life, this is our career or something that they use to benefit themselves in some way. And so I think what they're hopeful about is actually having a leader who wants to care about all the different groups of people, whether that is the youth or the elderly or indigenous groups or people who have to deal with, you know, a lot of like climate issues are a lot there because there's a lot of like natural disasters like landslides and you know, with like dropping temperatures and snow melting on the mountains and stuff, and there's a lot of like villages and groups of people that live out there. I think one of the things that I noted just from talking to all the different groups is someone who is able to give their attention to all of those different groups. And then I know a lot of people were talking about there is a lot of pressure from both China and India because also to kind of depending on where you are in Nepal, like you're like how we said in Chitwan, we were like in the buffer zone where we were much closer to the India border. And there's different geopolitical pressures from both of those, and who you talk to, the story like kind of changes. But that's kind of my takeaway from that.
Great.
So
If I may add a little bit
Yeah.
to Coco expert analysis, right? So I think some students alluded to the fact that, right? So the older generation still thinks that, oh, to expect long-term change, even with the election, is kind of naive. But, you know, all the young people we met, all the young Gen Z people we met, they understand that. They're pragmatic, right? They don't think everything is going to change. All of a sudden, Nepal is going to be extremely rich and wealthy. I think they're just excited about a positive change or the promise of it, right? That things will be a little different. So the prime minister who got ousted because of the Gen Z protest used to be the prime minister during my generation, during my time, like the 90s and early 2000s, right? So the Civil War happened, the Maoists came to power, and yet we still had the same leaders in the political system. And whatever you may think about the Gen Z revolution, they got rid of that idea of leadership, right? So the elections that are happening, all the traditional, even the traditional parties that are contesting it, they are trying to bring forward more like younger candidates, right? So in a way, you can argue there's a little bit of change that's already happening, right? So yeah, I wouldn't say that every Gen Z is a big category, right? I wouldn't say every leader is naive enough to think that everything's gonna transform well, but I think they're excited at the prospect of change, new leadership, maybe younger leadership. Now, to the second part of your question, how influential is China? It's quite a bit, quite a bit. Every time I visit, I see more and more signs,
Yeah.
right? And one of the interesting personal ways in which I see it is the electric vehicles, the EVs. That there's so many of them on the streets of Kathmandu, and most of them, like all of them, maybe with a few Teslas here and there, they're all Chinese market, Chinese companies, right? So they're definitely making inroads. And we used to always rely on India as our main ally. I think that has shifted quite considerably with China coming to the fore.
Thank you.
Well, and then you should add to this too. I mean, something pivotal after the September Gen Z movement succeeded in sort of disbanding Parliament and causing this national crisis was that that the army, the National Army, signaled a move to include Gen Z activists in discussions about what would happen next with an election. And that's
promising.
Phenomenal, right? Because it was this was the military sort of recognizing the legitimacy of the complaints of this generation. And so I think that my sense that was that signal to political parties that they had to take this seriously, right? And in the months that have followed, some of those parties have, like, I think all the parties have sort of given some lip service to diversifying and being more inclusive across generations. But now we're seeing sort of a part between those parties that are not at the place where they will do that, and those parties that maybe there is some real hope.
Colleen, one of the questions in the chat was from our friends at Timbercrest, wondering if we had any pictures of the mountains. Did you have any in that slideshow?
Yes. Give me just a second. I will say, be watching the MUP Studies Instagram. We'll be uploading probably many batches of photos, but this is one of the best. Let me see. So this was in Pokhara. Also in Pokhara. Just this one was actually taken right outside our hotel. Top of the hike. Top of the hike. And hills in the background of the dancing happening. So yeah, be watching the Instagram. We'll be posting a lot of photos from the trip.
Okay, thank you. Another question from the chat from Beth is, how did Gen Z unite over their issues? Did they use social media?
They definitely did. This was actually something we talked about when we were visiting with the activists, because it was really difficult to imagine Americans doing this, because there's so much division. Like, if you're not perfectly aligned with everything I stand for, we can't fight together. And they seem to get through all of that and very much united. But students probably have more to say than me.
Yeah, one of our first meetings was actually with an Indigenous women's group, and then someone who, she was about like 26 years old. So definitely a younger person working with them. She gave like a timeline of Nepal's Gen Z movement. And so it had started in 2020. They had the hashtag enough is enough, just kind of like an online campaign about the corruption and stuff in Nepal, and that was gaining a lot of traction and stuff. And then, there's a lot of debate and stuff on social media over the years. But then over the years until like about 2023, 2024, that's when a lot of people are like really feeling, enough is enough. And then I was talking about the social media bans, and that was in 2024, and that's what really started the, Gen Z revolution, the Gen Z revolution. Forget what I'm saying, actually. Oh yeah, so when we were talking with that girl, her name was Pima, I believe. She was saying how, like all these groups and stuff, these youth groups started forming because of the traction that like the hashtags and posts online were getting. But they had to be really careful about what they were posting and stuff when they're trying to get together, because sometimes like their location where they were meeting or something would get leaked, and like there'd be like an officer or someone like that that would just show up to the meeting. It's like a closed meeting, and they're not even trying to, actually plan anything to be violent. They're just trying to plan some sort of, peaceful protest or anything that they can do to approach this government that they're unhappy with. And they started kind of getting some kind of like threats and stuff for wanting to make a change, because that's also a narrative that they were fighting too, is everyone on social media wants to say that, Gen Z wants to be violent and overthrow the government and stuff, when, really, like Anuj was saying, they just want a change in leadership. And with social media, a lot of things can happen. She was talking about her one friend who was running for some sort of position in parliament. I don't remember what position it was. But she was getting absolutely dragged online because they said that she needed to prove that she was an actual Nepali person, a Nepali citizen. So yeah, it did start, kind of a movement on social media, but when things just started getting more cracked down on by the government and things were just getting really intense, it actually kind of became more of a problem, all the stuff that was circulating on the internet.
Another question from the chat. Was there any discussion of the happiness index?
So hi, Majeska. No, not specifically. But I know that Nepal's been rated on the happiness index, the happiest country in Southeast Asia. Is that right, Anuj? And I totally feel that. And I don't know. I was talking with some other people on the trip about this, because I've spent time in China, in Dalian and BC. When I was an undergrad, I went to China through Brethren Colleges Abroad, and I've traveled in India. And so we were talking, some of us on the trip, about the comparisons between being in those places. And maybe it's because Nepal never has been a colony, right? Doesn't have a colonial history, and it has always been part of this ancient connection of civilizations on the Silk Road, like a history of being a place of rich exchange. That it felt like a really accessible and collaborative place, out of the many places that I've traveled in that region. It's just really a special history and blend of cultures, and a diversity within Nepal that it completely makes sense to me, their happiness index rating now. And I don't know, Anuj, if you want to say about the happiness index and how that comes into play in Nepal.
I have no idea where we measure, to be honest. All I know is, like, Bhutan always claims that it's the happiest place in the world, yada yada yada. I do not know about that. However, we do laugh a lot, I'll tell you that. And the students can attest. Nepali people just, I'm not gonna say everybody's loud, but like we tend to value things like laughter, jokes, dancing. Again, students can attest to that, right? And without necessarily any philosophical reasoning behind it, that's just how we are.
Any other questions for our presenters?
I guess one thing Andrew mentioned, that we had 14 students, and then the 3 of us faculty staff and from the Peace Studies program. And the 14 students, Andrew mentioned some of the majors that were involved. And for some of our students, this was their first time out of the country. I forget how many, if it was basically 3 students who had done minimal traveling out of the country. One student had never been on a plane before. And they were all, I think everyone in the group demonstrated courage to put themselves in a very foreign environment, trust in the group to support each other through some, whether it was trekking or whether it was traveling on roads, that we couldn't predict how long a journey would take, or what we would be eating or when we would be eating. And again, this is just the kind of travel in which one of the objectives is to become comfortable with uncertainty and to sort of encounter something that's uncomfortable, encounter being unable to communicate in ways that we take for granted when we're in our own country, and understand that we can develop some skills to travel and communicate and meet with people and really exceed our own expectations for what we can accomplish. And this is the last January session, right? That Manchester's moving to a different calendar, and we're working on what these travel experiences look like in the future. We're committed to keeping them, and so I think that there are maybe 8 trips that faculty have proposed for next year outside of a traditional January session configuration. But it continues to be just this remarkable opportunity for students that might not be able to afford or imagine a semester abroad, but they're willing to step into this space that's not comfortable, but is exciting, and it offers them such a tremendous experience. And I really felt this was a special group, and a special opportunity because of Anuj, and because of his family. So I was really grateful for the experience.
Yeah, I
just
mean,
ask.
I
Go ahead.
and also very, very proud of this group. I feel like my family, especially my sister, kind of informally adopted all these students, right? Without them knowing, obviously, right? Because she kept telling me towards the end of the trip, I'm so proud of these students, man. Your students are awesome. I'm like, thank you, thank you. I know. My students, obviously, right? But no, we were really, really proud of this group, for sure.
They represented Manchester very well.
True.
I was just going to ask really briefly, do you have plans that you could talk about for your next travel course? And do you have any upcoming Peace Studies alumni weekend or spring break trips or anything coming up?
Yes. We're planning a trip in May of 27. Feels like so long from now. To the Balkans, to Serbia, Bosnia, Croatia, to look at post-conflict restructuring, transitional justice, and social movements, right? In Serbia in particular. So we're planning that trip as another peacemaking and practice abroad session. In terms of alumni offerings, we're working on some possibilities. The spring semester we have a couple conferences that we're taking students to, and so we're trying to look at our schedule and what that might allow, Tina, but we will absolutely be sure to let you know.
Okay, well, thank you to the students who joined us, Colleen and Katie and Anuj. Thank you for offering this opportunity for our students, and just really grateful for you sharing with us this evening. And thank you to all of the alumni who took time out of your evening to join us on the call this evening too. We're always so grateful that you choose to spend your time with us. And we are looking to continue this series, maybe not make it just only a winter January event. And so if you have alumni or friends that you think would be good to feature for an event like this, we would love for those suggestions. You can email the alumni office, alumnioffice@manchester.edu, and we would welcome your suggestions of cool alumni who are doing amazing things in the world, which some might argue could be all 20,000+ alumni that we have living around the world. But we would appreciate any input you would have for that. So again, just thank you so much, everybody, for joining us this evening. And we will hopefully talk with you soon. Bye.
Namaste.
Thanks, everyone.
You guys.
Namaste.
Namaste.